At 10:46 p.m. on January 2, 2026, Donald Trump gave an order. Within minutes, 150 aircraft launched from 20 different bases across the Western Hemisphere. Their destination, Caracas, Venezuela. Their target, Nicolas Maduro, the sitting president of Venezuela. By sunrise, Maduro would be in handcuffs on American soil. Some called it justice, others called it kidnapping. This is the story of Operation Absolute Resolve, one of the most controversial military operations in modern history, a story that divided the world. To understand what happened on January 3, 2026, you need to understand who Nicolas Maduro is. He was born in 1962 in Caracas, Venezuela, a working-class family. His first job, bus driver. For years, he drove the streets of Caracas, picked up passengers, collected fares, lived an ordinary life. But Maduro had political ambitions. He became a union leader, then a politician. Then he caught the attention of Hugo Chavez. Chavez was Venezuela's revolutionary president, a socialist leader who nationalized industries, redistributed oil wealth to the poor, and positioned himself against Washington. To his supporters, Chavez was a hero of the people. To his critics, he was an authoritarian who damaged Venezuela's economy. Maduro became Chavez's most loyal follower, his protege. When Chavez died of cancer in 2013, Maduro took power, and Venezuela's crisis deepened. Venezuela sits on the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, more than Saudi Arabia, more than Russia. On paper, it should be one of the richest countries in the world. But under Maduro's government, Venezuela experienced economic collapse. Hyperinflation reached catastrophic levels. At its peak, inflation hit 1,000,000%. Food became scarce. Medicine disappeared from hospitals. Basic services crumbled. Over 7 million Venezuelans fled the country. It became the largest refugee crisis in the Western Hemisphere. What caused this collapse? It depends on who you ask. Maduro blames American sanctions and economic warfare. He says the US deliberately strangled Venezuela's economy. Critics blame Maduro's policies. They say corruption, mismanagement, and authoritarianism destroyed a once prosperous nation. The truth is likely complicated, but the suffering was undeniable. And then there were the accusations that would change everything. In March 2020, the United States Department of Justice unsealed an indictment. The target? Nicolas Maduro. The charges? Narco-terrorism, drug trafficking, weapons offenses. According to American prosecutors, Maduro and senior Venezuelan officials ran what they called the Cartel of the Suns, an alleged state-sponsored drug trafficking operation. The indictment claims that for over 25 years, Venezuelan leaders partnered with drug organizations, including the FARC, Colombian guerrilla fighters, the Sinaloa Cartel, one of Mexico's most powerful criminal organizations, Tren de Aragua, a Venezuelan gang now designated as a terrorist organization. Prosecutors allege that hundreds of tons of cocaine flowed through Venezuela to the United States each year, and that Maduro and his inner circle protected the shipments in exchange for billions of dollars. These are serious allegations, but it's important to understand, Maduro has never been convicted of these charges. He has consistently denied any involvement in drug trafficking. He calls the accusations politically motivated, an excuse for American imperialism, a justification for regime change. His supporters agree. They see the indictment as a tool of economic warfare, not justice. For 6 years after the indictment, Maduro remained in power. The accusations seemed like words on paper. Then came 2025. In the fall of 2025, something changed. Donald Trump had returned to the White House. Marco Rubio was Secretary of State, and American military assets began moving toward Venezuela. In October, the Pentagon established Joint Task Force Southern Spear, a dedicated military command focused on the Caribbean region. Ships deployed, aircraft carriers, destroyers, amphibious assault ships. The USS Gerald R. Ford, America's newest aircraft carrier, sailed into Caribbean waters in November. Over 2,200 Marines embarked on the USS Iwo Jima. F-22 Raptors and F-35 stealth fighters deployed to Puerto Rico. It was the largest American military buildup in the region in decades. Officially, it was about regional security and counter-narcotics. Unofficially, everyone knew the target was Venezuela. Maduro watched the buildup. He called it intimidation. imperialism, a threat to Venezuelan sovereignty. He didn't know how close the threat really was. According to US officials, a CIA team had entered Venezuela in August 2025. For 5 months, they gathered intelligence on Maduro, his movements, his schedule, his security arrangements, his compound at Fort Tiuna, the military complex in Caracas where he lived. General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, later said American intelligence even knew the names of Maduro's pets. This level of surveillance is standard for high-value target operations. The U.S. used similar methods before the bin Laden raid, before capturing Saddam Hussein. By December, American officials believed they had everything they needed. The decision now rested with one man. According to Donald Trump, he made a personal phone call to Maduro approximately 1 week before the operation. American warships were visible off Venezuela's coast. The threat was clear. Trump claims Maduro came close to accepting, but he didn't. We don't know what Maduro was thinking. Did he believe Trump was bluffing? Did he think his allies would protect him? Did he think he could survive? Whatever his calculation, he chose to stay. That choice would cost him everything. Donald Trump spent Christmas 2025 at Mar-a-Lago, his Florida estate. According to U.S. officials, he approved Operation Absolute Resolve before Christmas. The exact date was kept secret. Military planners waited for favorable weather conditions. On New Year's Eve, Trump attended a party at Mar-a-Lago. When reporters asked about his resolution for 2026, he gave no hints. 3 days later, the world would understand. January 2nd, 2026, 10:46 p.m. Eastern Time. Donald Trump gave the final order. His message to the forces, according to General Kane, good luck and Godspeed. Across the Western Hemisphere, 150 aircraft launched from 20 different locations. Puerto Rico, the US Virgin Islands, El Salvador, the Dominican Republic, aircraft carriers at sea, bases across the continental United States, F-22 Raptors, F-35 Lightning fighters, helicopters carrying special operations forces, all converging on one city, Caracas. The helicopter force flew low over the Caribbean Sea. According to military officials, they flew at approximately 100 feet above the water, low enough to avoid radar detection. The helicopters carried operators from Delta Force, America's elite special operations unit. Alongside them were FBI agents, because this was officially a law enforcement operation. As the helicopters approached Venezuelan airspace, other elements of the operation activated. U.S. Cyber Command launched electronic attacks on Venezuelan defense systems. Fighter jets targeted air defense positions. Venezuela had Russian-made S-300 missiles and Buk M2 anti-aircraft systems, modern equipment capable of shooting down aircraft. But American electronic warfare and precision strikes neutralized these defenses before the helicopters arrived. The approach route took the helicopters through the mountains that separate Caracas from the coast, dangerous terrain in total darkness. At 1:01 a.m. local time, they arrived at Fort Tiuna. What happened inside Maduro's compound is still not fully public. According to General Kane, the assault force descended into Maduro's compound and moved with speed, precision, and discipline. The helicopters came under fire from Venezuelan forces. American troops returned fire with what Kane called overwhelming force in self-defense. One American helicopter was hit but remained operational. According to President Trump, who says he watched the operation in real time, Maduro attempted to reach a safe room when American forces entered. He didn't make it. Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were taken into custody. They gave up, General Kane stated. No further details about the capture have been officially released. With Maduro in custody, the American force prepared to leave. This was the most dangerous phase. They were deep inside a foreign capital. Venezuelan forces were responding. General Kane reported multiple self-defense engagements as the force began to withdraw. Fighter jets and drones provided cover. At 3:29 a.m. Eastern Time, the American force crossed back over the water with Maduro aboard. The operation had taken less than 3 hours. 7 American service members were wounded, gunshot and shrapnel injuries. 5 returned to duty quickly. 2 required longer treatment. No American forces were killed. From a military perspective, Operation Absolute Resolve achieved its objective. From a legal and diplomatic perspective, the controversy was just beginning. Maduro's path to New York took several steps. First, he was brought aboard the USS Iwo Jima, then transferred to Guantanamo Bay, the U.S. naval base in Cuba. Finally, a Department of Justice Boeing 757 flew him to Stewart Air National Guard Base in New York. He landed at 4:32 p.m. on January 3, 2026. Video showed Maduro walking off the aircraft surrounded by federal agents. A helicopter transported him to Manhattan, then a motorcade to a DEA field office for processing. His final destination, the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn. The president of Venezuela was now a prisoner in the United States. Attorney General Pam Bondi announced the charges against Maduro shortly after his capture. The superseding indictment alleges narco-terrorism conspiracy, 20-year minimum, up to life in prison. Cocaine importation conspiracy, 10-year minimum, up to life in prison. Possession of machine guns and destructive devices, 30-year minimum. Conspiracy to possess machine guns and destructive devices, up to life in prison. The indictment also names Maduro's wife Celia Flores, his son Nicolas Ernesto Maduro Guerra, and other Venezuelan officials. If convicted on all charges, Maduro could spend the rest of his life in prison. But conviction is not guaranteed. Maduro has pleaded not guilty to all charges. His defense team includes Barry Pollock, a prominent attorney who represented Julian Assange. Legal experts say Maduro may challenge the case on several grounds: head of state immunity, historical legal principle protecting sitting leaders, unlawful capture, he was not extradited through legal channels, jurisdictional questions, whether U.S. courts can try a foreign president for actions in his own country. These legal battles could take years. January 5, 2026, federal court in Manhattan. Nicolas Maduro stood before a judge for the first time. Through an interpreter, he made a statement. "I am the president of Venezuela. I consider myself a prisoner of war. I was captured at my home in Caracas. I'm innocent. I'm not guilty. I'm a decent man." The defense reported that Maduro may have suffered a broken or bruised rib during the capture. They requested medical attention. During the hearing, a person stood up in the courtroom and shouted, "You will pay!" Maduro turned and responded, "I am a man of God." The capture of Nicolas Maduro divided the world. Those who celebrated the Venezuelan exiles in Miami danced in the streets. For years, they had fled Maduro's government. The Trump administration called it a law enforcement operation to bring a narco-terrorist to justice. Those who condemned the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres said he was deeply alarmed. He called the operation a dangerous precedent and expressed concern that the rules of international law have not been respected. Iran demanded Maduro's release. Their foreign ministry called it an illegal act and an abduction. Russia and China condemned the action. In Times Square, New York, hundreds of protesters gathered. They chanted, "Hands off Venezuela," and held signs reading, "No blood for oil." Even in Caracas, Maduro's supporters marched in the streets, holding his portrait and demanding his return. The legal questions, many international law experts raised concerns. Was this a legal arrest or a violation of sovereignty? Does a sitting president have immunity from foreign prosecution? Can the United States use military force to capture a foreign leader without congressional authorization? These questions have no easy answers, and they may shape international relations for years to come. We cannot discuss Venezuela without discussing oil. Venezuela has the largest proven oil reserves on Earth, more than 300 billion barrels. For decades, American oil companies operated in Venezuela. Then came nationalization under Chavez. American companies were expelled. Critics of the Maduro operation say oil is the real motivation. No blood for oil was a common protest sign. The Trump administration denies this. They say the operation was about drug trafficking and terrorism. But within days of Maduro's capture, Trump met with American oil executives to discuss investments in Venezuela. The timing raised questions. Was this about drugs? Was this about oil? Was this about geopolitics? Perhaps all three. The answers may not be clear for years. Operation Absolute Resolve raises questions that go beyond Nicolas Maduro. About international law, can powerful nations capture leaders of weaker nations if they accuse them of crimes? What does this mean for sovereignty? Who decides which leaders are criminals and which are legitimate? About U.S. foreign policy, is this a new doctrine? Will other leaders face similar operations? Trump threatens threatened other nations after Maduro's capture. He accused Colombia's president of drug trafficking. He made demands of Cuba about justice. If Maduro is guilty of the crimes alleged, does the method of capture matter? If he's innocent, has a grave injustice occurred? These are not simple questions. History will judge Operation Absolute Resolve, but that judgment will depend on who is writing the history.